The magic of the Ten Rings has been part of Marvel Comics since the inception of the Mandarin in the early days of Tony Stark's adventures as Iron Man. As we have discussed here, they are not actually rings, but cylinders from an ancient draconic and alien race's spacecraft. In the upcoming Marvel Studios production of Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, we are being led to believe that Marvel has reimagined them as bracelets or even Kung Fu iron rings for their character Wen Wu, aka the new Mandarin. Now, the Mandarin leads the Ten Rings, and the Ten Rings has meant different things in the MCU over time. They have evolved from a terrorist organization led by Raza in Iron Man 1 to the revelation of a real Mandarin in All Hail to the King. And now with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, we now potentially seem to have the alien tech providing near mystical powers. But what if there are no actual rings at all, and the quote-unquote rings are complete misdirection? What if 10 rings means something no one is considering? Well, we have a theory, and it's placed in very recent and a very big Marvel Comics event. So let's dig in to the 10 rings and how they can provide Shang-Chi with a very interesting power base. Now, before we break this down, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. Also, don't forget about the big giveaway. We got this PlayStation 5 to give away at 25,000 subscribers. All you have to do to get in on the giveaway is be a subscriber and leave a comment. As we were saying, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is going to introduce the world to the character of Shang-Chi. One of the more endearing things about the character is he is basically just a master of Kung Fu, and for the most part doesn't have any superpowers. Now, everyone is aware that the Ten Rings is going to be part of this movie, and if you followed our video explaining the Ten Rings, you know each ring has a separate power it gives its user. But it might be very possible that Marvel is going in a completely different direction with Shang-Chi. Now, way back in 2015, Marvel had the Secret Wars event. This resulted in something known as Battle World. Battle World was an amalgamation of multiple Marvel universes and allowed the writers to explore some very, very interesting stories. Now, within the Battle World framework, we got Master of Kung Fu, which was a 4-issue limited series. Now, there are multiple things about this series that are pretty interesting. First and foremost, this is basically where Shang-Chi's father is retconned from Fu Manchu to a new character named Zanzu. Now, in this version of the story, he also leads the Ten Rings. But when you read the story, you find out these are not actually rings and refer to something else. Now, one of the things that fans really love about Shang is that lack of superpowers. It seems to make him stand out. But I suspect Marvel wants to find a way to highlight him on the screen and make him feel as superpowered as other characters, but without giving him powers. Interestingly enough, the Master of Kung Fu Limited series also features a tournament where Shang-Chi faces off against other Marvel characters. And we're not talking lightweights. He actually takes down Namor and the Black Panther in this process. But as the book progresses, we start to see some interesting things. Now, very early in the comic, he uses a power, it appears, called Nightbringer. And when I saw this, I realized that was the same name as one of the Mandarin's rings, which allows him to create darkness, which, as you can see from this panel, is exactly what Shang is doing with his powers. Now, as you progress through the book, it is revealed that the Ten Rings are not an organization, but are actually martial arts techniques. By the time we reach the climactic battle between Shang-Chi and Zanzu, you start to see something pretty interesting. As the battle takes place, Shang-Chi appears to be using various techniques that also mirror other rings' powers. This includes electricity, the ability to freeze things, and even flaming fists. This also means one of the powers that Shang has displayed in the comics, where he could create multiple duplicates of himself, could be tied to one of those 10-ring techniques and keep him fairly consistent with the comics. Now, interestingly emaugh, the battle climaxes with Shang-Chi defeating his father, Zanzu, by turning him to stone, which is exactly what the Mandarin's Remaker ring does. Is it possible that in the MCU, we're still not going to get these mystical, magical rings? But instead, the 10 rings themselves will refer to martial arts techniques that Shang has mastered that, when done correctly, have a very, very wushu, superpower effect on the world. This would allow Marvel to keep him basically without powers, but allow his kung fu to be so good he's tapped into near mystical forces. Now, this is obviously a theory, and just something we're kicking around here, but it does sound like something Marvel Studios would do, and quite honestly, because the Mandarin in the MCU is so convoluted, they may be seeking some misdirection to throw fans off the scent very early on. Shang-Chi's appearance in Secret Wars is not something that's highlighted by many people, and it could be quite the interesting source material to pull from. What do you guys think? Do you think Shang-Chi's 10 rings could be referring to martial arts techniques, just like in Secret Wars? And if so, are you okay giving Shang this little bump in power? Sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you press like, click subscribe, and if you don't ring that bell, you won't get any updates. Peace.